I have only ever loved one woman my entire life. But she died saving me in a multi-car pileup. Her heart was donated according to her last wishes. To continue feeling my lover's heartbeat, I went to great lengths to find the recipient of the transplant, the CEO of the Sterling Corporation, Chloe. And so with a hidden agenda, I began to pursue her relentlessly. Because of my unconditional devotion, I quickly became infamous in Chloe's social circle, known to everyone as her pathetic lapdog. Everyone knew I was hopelessly obsessed with Chloe. The mere mention of my name would draw scornful smirks from them all. Ethan. Oh, you mean that leech who's always stuck to Chloe? He's been rejected so many times. If I were him, I'd be too ashamed to show my face. Doesn't everyone know Chloe only has eyes for her first love, Julian Kraft? He really doesn't know his place. And I said nothing in the face of their mockery and ridicule, because only I knew the truth. As long as that heart was still beating, I had a reason to stay by her side. But it seemed fate had decided to play a cruel joke on me. Today, a sudden phone call from the hospital shattered my entire world. Mr. Evans, I'm terribly sorry, but we've made a mistake. The recipient of your girlfriend's heart transplant was not Chloe Sterling, the CEO of the Sterling Corporation. It was someone else. That person is currently in Seattle. The staff member on the other end of the line told me the truth, their voice filled with apology. I was silent for a long time before finally speaking into their anxious waiting. I understand. The moment I hung up, the door was thrown open. Chloe burst in, her face a mask of anxiety. She grabbed my hand and started pulling me out of the room. You're coming with me. With no further explanation, Chloe dragged me forcefully into her car. She drove recklessly, speeding down the road and running countless red lights. Her fingers drummed restlessly on the steering wheel, a clear sign of her agitation. I just sat numbly in the passenger seat, my mind replaying every moment since I'd met Chloe. I remembered how I'd pulled out all the stops to win her over, finally wearing her down with sheer persistence until she agreed to marry me. But whether we were taking wedding photos, exchanging rings, or even on our wedding night, she was always cold and distant, as if none of it mattered to her. But now, Chloe was on the verge of losing control. I racked my brain. The only person who could make her this frantic had to be her first love. A few minutes later, we screeched to a halt at a hospital, and Chloe finally told me why we were there. Apparently, her first love, Julian Kraft, had been in an accident and needed an urgent blood transfusion, and I just happened to be a match. Just then, a nurse rushed over. Her face lit up when she saw me, and she immediately started pulling me toward the phlebotomy room. Halfway there, I stopped in my tracks and turned to face her. Chloe, I need you to answer a question for me. Chloe was impatient, assuming I was going to ask about Julian. I'll explain about Julian and me later. But I just shook my head. I didn't care about her relationship with Julian. After all, she wasn't the one I loved. That's not what I want to ask. I only have one question. 3 years ago, you had a heart transplant. What was the donor's name? Hearing my question, Chloe frowned, confused by my motive. But perhaps because she was worried about Julian's condition, she answered. I only know her last name was Martin. That was a completely different name from Melody Rose. It looked like it really was a mistake. I see. I nodded, asked no more questions, and turned to follow the nurse into the room. But, for some reason watching my retreating back, Chloe felt a strange sense of unease. Just as I was about to step into the room, she couldn't stop herself from calling out. Why did you ask that? Just confirming something. Confirming that I'm done with you. I didn't say that last part out loud. Just kept it buried in my heart. As the needle slid into my vein, blood flowed through the tube and into the collection bag. While the blood was being drawn, I took out my phone with my other hand and sent a message to my lawyer. Please draft the divorce papers. I want out. I felt dizzy, leaning against the wall for support. I staggered out of the room, only to see Chloe at Julian's bedside. He was fresh, out of surgery. She was holding his hand tightly, whispering softly to him, her eyes filled with a tenderness I had never seen. It never once occurred to her to ask me, her husband in name only, how I was feeling or if I was okay. She didn't even notice I had left the hospital. When I got back to our house, I went straight to the kitchen. I was already anemic, and after giving so much blood today, my face was pale. I tried to make myself some oatmeal to recover, but as soon as I ladled it into a bowl, my hands gave out. With a crash, the bowl shattered on the floor. I almost lost it over something so small. After all these years of enduring mockery and humiliation without flinching, my eyes suddenly welled with tears. Without you here, I really can't do anything right. The spilled oatmeal pooled at my feet, and the sight of it suddenly took me back. Back then, I had the most wonderful person in my life. I have a sensitive stomach, and spicy food always gives me terrible cramps. Melody was always so thoughtful. She would make me a bowl of warm oatmeal, blow on each spoonful until it was the perfect temperature, and then feed it to me. Sometimes I'd act childish and whine, and she would curl up in my arms, pressing her warm hands against my stomach, telling me it would make the pain go away. When I was in a foul mood and irritated by everything, she would just sit quietly beside me, playing video games or just talking until I felt better. Thinking of her, I knelt and began picking up the broken pieces one by one. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through my fingertip. I looked down and saw I'd cut myself on a shard of ceramic. In that moment, the tears finally came. How could I not have noticed something was wrong? I can't believe I had the wrong person. I'm so sorry. You love me so much. But Chloe was always so cold, so distant. That heart never beat wildly for me. I gathered all the pieces and threw them in the trash, then forced a smile onto my face. Oh, Ying. But it's okay. Melody. We'll be together again soon. The next day, Chloe still hadn't come home. After getting ready, I left to meet with my lawyer. I sat down across the desk where a drafted divorce agreement was already laid out. Mr. Evans, Raleigh has passed. The divorce will be final. Hearing this, and thinking of how Chloe hadn't even bothered to come home, I quickly asked, "Can I sign for her?" Mr. Evans, "That's absolutely not possible," the lawyer said, shaking his head. He was adamant. Seeing his firm stance, I quickly added, "My wife wants this divorce too. She's just too busy to come in. I'd just be signing for her. I can call her right now if you don't believe me." With that, I pulled out my phone, found Chloe's number, and called. After what felt like an eternity of ringing, she finally picked up. I didn't even bother with a greeting. "I need to talk to you about something." But before I could finish, she cut me off. "Just handle it. I don't need the details." Then I heard a man's voice in the background. It was Julie unwinging. "Chloe, the medicine is so bitter. Do I have to drink it?" Just before the line went dead, I faintly heard Chloe's gentle reply. "You have to. How else are you going to get better?" I looked at the lawyer holding the phone. He had heard enough to understand her indifference and finally relented, nodding his approval for me to sign for her. With his permission, I let out a quiet sigh of relief and signed Chloe's name on the divorce agreement. As I left the law office, I booked a one-way ticket to Seattle for 1 month from today. A week passed before Chloe finally came home. It was the middle of the night when she came into the bedroom. I was half asleep and barely registered her presence. It wasn't until the mattress dipped beside me and an arm wrapped naturally around my waist that I fully woke up. I pushed her away and shifted to the far side of the bed. Chloe, stunned by the rejection, frowned. "Don't you need to listen to my heartbeat to fall asleep every night?" I rarely asked for anything from Chloe, but this was the one and only request she had ever granted me. Back then, when we were newly married, we had nothing but a marriage certificate. I would just lean gently against her chest, my ear pressed close to her heart. She had asked me why I liked it, and I had looked up at her and said with all the sincerity I could muster, "Because I love listening to your heartbeat." Can I fall asleep like this every night? Maybe it was the look in my eyes when I asked, but, for some reason, she couldn't bring herself to refuse, and against her better judgment, she agreed. The habit had continued until now. Whenever she was home, I would rest my head over her heart, but now I just shook my head. "Not anymore. It's not necessary." With that, I turned my back to her. Chloe watched me curled into a ball, an uncomfortable feeling stirring within her. It was the first time I hadn't clung to her. She didn't even like me, so she should have been happy that I was no longer clinging to her. Yet she felt no joy, only a strange emptiness in her chest. Maybe she had just gotten used to me holding her, and this was some kind of withdrawal. That's how Chloe rationalized it to herself. I slept in the next morning. When I finally came downstairs, I was shocked to find Chloe still there. The words slipped out before I could stop them. "Aren't you going to the hospital to be with Julian today?" Normally, a question like that would have annoyed her. But this time, Chloe seemed relieved. "So you were just jealous about Julian yesterday?" "Julian is just a friend. He got into that accident, right?" after he came back to the country. So, I was just looking after him. He's been discharged now, she explained with uncharacteristic patience, then added, didn't you want me to take you to see the sunset? I haven't been around much lately. To make it up to you, I'll take you today. Now that I knew the truth and the divorce was in motion, I had no intention of continuing this meaningless charade. I instinctively started to refuse. But Chloe, believing her plan to be perfect, overruled my objection and had the car brought around. Once I was in the car, I decided not to fight it. If I truly loved her, I would have screamed and fought, and my heart would have been broken. But I loved Melody, and her heart wasn't inside Chloe's body. So, none of this affected me. Before long, we reached our destination. But just as we got to the base of the hill, Chloe's phone rang. She answered immediately, and I clearly saw the name Julian on her screen. I couldn't hear what he said, but after she hung up, she hesitated for only a moment before getting back in the car. I'll be back for you in a bit, she said. And then she was gone. She said she'd be back. But I waited for a long time. I waited until the sun had set and the last colors of dusk had faded from the sky. And she still hadn't returned. There were no cabs out here. I didn't bother calling Chloe to ask if she was coming back. I just started walking home alone. By the time I reached the nearest town, I was finally in an area where I could call a car. I had just pulled out my phone to get a ride home when a message popped up from one of Chloe's friends. Emergency, get to the Onyx Lounge. Most of Chloe's friends looked down on me and rarely ever contacted me. But when I saw the message, I didn't hesitate. I hailed the first car I couldn't, headed straight for the club. It wasn't that I was worried about Chloe. I was just worried that if something happened to her now, it would complicate the divorce. But when I found the private room at the address they'd sent and pushed open the door, my foot caught on a rope stretched across the entrance. I didn't see it in time and went sprawling, my head cracking hard against a nearby stool. My head swam with pain. I instinctively reached up and my fingers came away sticky with blood. The group inside the room watched my humiliating fall with amusement, clearly not finished with me yet. The next moment, the door slammed shut and a bucket of ice cold water was dumped over my head, soaking me to the bone. Look at him. Doesn't he look just like a wet dog? You know, that's actually the perfect word for him. The room erupted in laughter, their words dripping with scorn and contempt for me. The AC was blasting in the room. My wet clothes clung to my skin, and I shivered as a draft hit me. I finally realized it was all a cruel prank. But my expression remained unchanged. I just wiped the water from my face as they continued to laugh, seeing my lack of reaction. Some of them grew bored, but one of them, wanting to provoke me further, he pulled out his phone and played a video for me. Hey lapdog, we called you here to let you know that Chloe's first love is back. I looked up just as the video started playing on the screen. There was security footage from another room. Chloe was kneeling, gently massaging Julian's ankle. See that? Chloe ditched you on that hill today to throw a welcome home party for Julian. Julian just twisted his ankle, and she was all over him, helping him out of the room like he was made of glass. Has she ever treated you like that? Stop wasting everyone's time. You should just get out of the way now. It'll be less embarrassing than when she kicks you out. Her friends were still taunting me, but I just clutched my bleeding head and looked at them. Don't worry, I said. I'll get out of the way. Because I don't love her either. I even nodded for emphasis. After I spoke, everyone in the room froze, staring at me as if I'd just grown a second head. All I said was that I didn't love her. Why were they looking at me like they'd seen a ghost? Just then, the door opened again, and Chloe walked in. When she saw the chaos in the room and me, soaked and bleeding, her brow furrowed. What are you doing? No one expected her to get angry on my behalf. After a moment of silence, one of them laughed it off. Chloe, we were just having a little fun with Ethan. It's no big deal. This is your idea of fun, she shot back, her voice cold. She wasn't letting them off the hook. But I was even more surprised by her reaction than her friends were. Because of Chloe's coldness toward me, her friends had been mocking me for years. I was used to the humiliation. But now she was actually defending me. We just thought since the guy you've been waiting for all these years is back, he should make some room. Someone mumbled, trying to smooth things over. They were trying to defuse the situation. But before he could finish, Chloe cut him off with a sharp shut up. Her face was grim as she pulled me toward the door. But as we turned, Julian walked in. Seeing her about to leave, he looked displeased. Chloe, We're in the middle of a game. I just got back. I'm finally having some fun. You're not leaving already, are you? At his words. Chloe, who had been so determined to leave with me just a moment ago, hesitated. She turned to me. Ethan, are you okay to wait? I looked down at my soaked, bloody clothes and let out a bitter laugh. Anyone could see I was soaked to the skin and bleeding from my forehead. And she was asking if I was okay to wait. At that point, I didn't have the energy to argue. You guys have fun, I said. The words were barely out of my mouth before Chloe visibly relaxed, as if she'd been granted a pardon. The others quickly ushered her and Julian to the sofa, and the game of truth or dare resumed. Chloe lost the very first round. How old were you when you had your first crush? At that question, all eyes darted between me and Julian. As expected, she gave the answer everyone wanted to hear. 15. She answered without a hint of hesitation. I heard the number and remembered the file I'd read. She was 15 the year Julian Kraft moved in next door. Whether it was bad luck or not, Chloe lost the next 2 rounds as well. And the questions got progressively more intense. How old were you when you had your first dirty dream? 17. And the person in that dream was. The catcalls and teasing grew louder with the last question. But Chloe suddenly went quiet. She reached for her drink, ready to take the penalty. But someone stopped her. Come on, Chloe. If you don't want to say the name, just give us an initial. I watched from the sidelines as she finally let go of the glass and whispered a single letter. G. Julian. It was so obvious. I knew it, and so did everyone else in the room. The teasing intensified, and Julian's face turned betrayed amid the chaos. Julian finally looked up, a smug look on his face as he glanced over at me. Ethan's all alone over there. Why don't you join us? I didn't refuse and moved to join the circle. The group started a new round of the game. This time, I was the one who lost. I drew a card from the pile and flipped it over. It read, "Is the person you love most in this room?" Odd. That's too easy. Seriously. Everyone knows Ethan is obsessed with Chloe. Grumbles of disappointment went around the circle. But as all eyes fell on me, I slowly shook my head. Not a word hung in the air, and the room fell into a stunned silence. Everyone stared at me in shock. Even Chloe, who usually acted as if I didn't exist, looked visibly displeased. The atmosphere in the room turned thick and awkward. After a long, tense moment, someone finally broke the silence and changed the subject. But the mood was ruined. The party broke up soon after. Chloe was silent on the drive home, acting as if nothing had happened. But the moment we were in the car, she pinned me with her gaze. What did you mean by that answer back there? I opened my mouth to speak, but she cut me off. Are you still mad that I left you on that hill? It was then I realized that the possibility of me not loving her had never even crossed her mind. She just assumed I was sulking. I couldn't be bothered to explain. She could believe whatever she wanted. When I didn't answer, she took my silence as confirmation, and some of the tension left her. After a moment, she added, "The weather's been bad lately. We'll go see the sunset another time." I gave an noncommittal nod, but I knew there wouldn't be a next time for us. The car soon arrived back at the house. After she got ready for bed, Chloe lay down beside me and instinctively reached for me. But I pushed her hand away again. I don't need to anymore. I can sleep on my own now. It was the second time I had told her I didn't need to listen to her heart. The old Chloe would have been relieved to hear that. But, for some reason, hearing it now just made her feel irritated. She didn't want to hear another word of it, and moved to silence me with a kiss. But as she leaned in, I turned my head away. My eyes remained closed, my voice heavy with exhaustion. Let's just go to sleep. The proud Chloe Sterling, CEO of the Sterling Corporation, was used to being pursued, not rejected. After being turned down multiple times in one night, her face darkened, and she rolled over, turning her back to me. The next morning, Chloe left for the office early. I stayed home to recover from my injuries. After lunch, her assistant called. "Miss Sterling's heart is acting up, but she's run out of her medication here at the office. Could you bring some over?" This wasn't the first time her assistant had called me to run this errand. In the past, I would have restocked her supply without even being asked. Anytime I heard Chloe was feeling unwell, I would drop everything in a panic. It was obvious to anyone how much I doted on her. But this time, I listened calmly until the assistant finished, then said slowly, "It's too far to drive from the house. You should just buy some near the office." The assistant, clearly shocked by my refusal, stammered, but I don't know which medication to get, and you've always been the one to bring it. Whenever Miss Sterling's heart acts up, you're always so worried. I cut off her rambling. Not anymore. My voice was steady, completely devoid of its usual panic. I rattled off the names of the medications, then added, "You're her assistant. This is your job from now on." After I hung up, the assistant on the other end was left speechless. Luckily, she had jotted down the names of the medications and quickly sent someone to buy them. When Chloe got home that evening, she found me sitting calmly on the sofa watching television. Her expression started immediately. "My heart was bothering me today, didn't you know?" Her familiar, accusatory tone didn't make me look away from the screen. My reply was simple. "I knew." She looked at me in disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend my blatant indifference. "You knew and you didn't come. Like I said, it was too far." I said it as casually as if I were talking about the weather. She stared at me, a storm of conflicting emotions brewing inside her. She felt that I had changed. Before, if she so much as sneezed, I would be a nervous wreck. I would never have been so detached, so indifferent, as if she were a complete stranger. Was I still upset about the sunset? She considered it, then rubbed her temples, forcing herself to let it go. "Go get changed." At that, I finally looked up at her, but my expression wasn't the pleased surprise she expected. It was confusion. After all, in our 3 years of marriage, Chloe had given me nothing but a hastily signed marriage certificate. No wedding, no meeting her parents. She had never once taken me to the monthly Sterling family dinner. I only found out why by accident. I remember it was her first anniversary. I was going to ask her if she wanted to do something to celebrate, but I overheard her on the phone with her parents. "Chloe, you've been married for a year now. When are you going to bring your husband home to meet us? We have the family heirloom ready for him. His family may not be much, but if he helps you forget Julian, then it's worth it." Their voices were muffled through the door, but her reply was chillingly clear. "It was a marriage of convenience. There's no need for you to meet him." Those few words told me everything I needed to know about her feelings for me. Her mother's voice drifted from the room again. "You still haven't forgotten Julian. I thought once you were married." "I've tried. I can't." The call ended with her mother's sigh. I quietly closed the door and walked away, pretending I had never been there. I had accepted back then that I would never set foot in the Sterling family home. And now, after I discovered the truth, she was suddenly inviting me to meet her parents. Forget it. I shook my head, gently refusing. This time, Chloe finally lost her patience. She frowned. "What has gotten into you lately? You refuse everything I suggest. You were never like this before." By the end of her sentence, she was getting worked up. I suddenly remembered how I used to bend to her every whim. After a moment of silence, not wanting to arouse any more suspicion, I agreed to go with her. The family home wasn't far, and we arrived quickly. As soon as we walked in, I saw someone already sitting in the living room. It was Julian. He was chatting happily with Chloe's parents. Her mother was holding a green jade pendant, which she placed in Julian's hand, with a look of deep affection. Seeing this, Chloe's expression flickered. She explained in a low voice, "Julian is an old family friend. He's always invited to these dinners." She glanced at me as she spoke, but I was just calmly changing my shoes, a faint smile on my face. "You don't have to explain to me." Chloe's face stiffened. She clearly hadn't expected that reaction. Before she could say anything, Julian walked over. "Your parents want to see you in the study. They said it's important." Interrupted. She just nodded. She made a move to take me with her, but Julian stopped her. "They said you should go alone." So Chloe went by herself. As soon as she was gone, Julian eagerly held up his hand, dangling the jade pendant in front of my face. His eyes were full of smug triumph. "This is the Sterling family heirloom. Her mother just gave it to me. She said now that I'm back, Chloe's life is complete." Can you believe it? After all these years, I'm only just now realizing how much Chloe has always loved me. Julian stared at me, searching my face for any sign of pain or despair, but my expression remained blank. I didn't even glance at the pendant. I just listened quietly until he was finished, then looked at him with a faint, unreadable smile. "I'm sorry." My question caught him off guard. I continued, "You and Chloe grew up together. Anyone could see how she felt about you. Are you telling me you really didn't know?" I put extra emphasis on the word really, and my stare made him visibly uncomfortable, but he recovered quickly. "So what if I knew? I knew she was in love with me, but I kept her at arm's length." I wanted her to pine for me, to always have me on her mind, watching a princess like her follow me around like a lost puppy. It was amusing, wasn't it? Who else could have that kind of power over her? But I know you can't play the game forever. So now I'm done playing. I'm ready to accept her. If I tell her I'm ready to be with her, how fast do you think she'll divorce you and throw you out like garbage? His provocative words had no effect on me. I just said a quiet toe and started to walk past him, enraged at being dismissed. Julian lunged and grabbed for me. I moved too fast for him. He missed my arm, but his hand caught the chain around my neck and jerked it off. He glanced at it with a frown, then tossed it aside in disgust. What is this piece of junk? I heard a sizzle. I turned just in time to see the necklace land in the fiery coals of the barbecue pit. My expression changed instantly. My mind went completely blank. Without thinking, I lunged for the fire pit, plunging my hand into the burning coals, ignoring the searing heat. Sir, a nearby housekeeper cried out and rushed to stop me. But it was too late. Even Julian, momentarily losing his composure, yelled, "Are you insane?" In the midst of the chaos, I finally managed to pull the necklace from the flames. But the pendant was warped and blackened from the heat, the once shining metal now dull and coated in ash. Completely unrecognizable. My heart ached with regret and guilt. Melody had given that to me for my 18th birthday, and now it was ruined. I carefully tucked the ruined necklace away, then walked over to Julian. Before he could react, I slapped him hard across the face. I put all my strength into it. He stared at me in disbelief, and fueled by my unabated rage, I slapped him again. The two blows left Julian dizzy and furious. He opened his mouth to speak, but I slapped him a third time. It still wasn't enough. I raised my hand again, but this time, Chloe rushed out. "Have you lost your mind?" she yelled, her voice a mixture of shock and anger. She rushed to Julian's side, completely missing the fact that Hersham had sent me, stumbling backward right into the swimming pool. "I can't swim," panicked. I thrashed in the water, choking on mouthfuls of it, my throat and nose burning. I heard the housekeeper's panicked shouts, the words broken and frantic. "Missy can't swim." Hearing this, Chloe's expression flickered, but then her face hardened. Without even a glance in my direction, she commanded, "Don't help him. He can come out when he's ready to apologize." With she carefully helped to his feet and walked away. With no one to help, I sank beneath the surface several times, barely managing to fight my way back up. But each time my vision blurred and my consciousness faded, I thought of Melody. Couldn't die here. Not before I'd met the person who truly had her heart. In the end, I had to save myself, using the last ounce of my strength to pull myself out of the water. The moment I was safe, I collapsed, unconscious. I woke up in a hospital bed a few days later. Chloe was sitting by my bedside, her expression grim. "Your phone just got a flight confirmation. Where are you going?" For a moment, I found the situation absurdly funny. I had nearly drowned because of her. And when I woke up, there was no guilt, no concern, only an interrogation about my travel plans. Nowhere in particular. Just wanted to get away for a bit. I made a vague excuse, then met her gaze directly. "If he ever touches my things again, I'll kill him." It was just a necklace. Was it really worth all this? Her question sent a jolt of anger through me. The person I love most in this world gave that to me. I snapped. It means everything to me. I was done pretending with her. At my words, Chloe's expression froze. A strange, uncomfortable look crossed her face, and her eyes softened slightly. "I just bought that necklace on a whim," she said a little awkwardly. "If you like it that much, I can just get you another one." Her words stunned me into silence. In all our years together, she had only ever given me one gift, a necklace. She thought the necklace Julian had destroyed was the one she had given me. "Ethan, I'm only going to tolerate this once. Julian is my friend. If you lay a hand on him again, I don't know what I'll do." With that, she stood up and left without another word. The nurse coming in to change my bandages passed her in the doorway. Her eyes lit up when she saw Chloe, and she started whispering excitedly to her colleague. "Isn't that the CEO who rented out an entire floor of the hospital for her boyfriend?" It was just a few slap marks on his face, but she insisted on a full battery of tests. That she really spoils him. That's not all. The nurses on that floor say she's been personally applying his medication and feeding him his meals. She treats him like he's a precious jewel. I heard every word, but it was like listening to a story about strangers. Couldn't have cared less. As soon as the nurse was done, I discharged myself from the hospital. Chloe didn't come home for the next few days, but I knew exactly where she was. Julian sent me daily updates, each one a taunt. Chloe took him to the ocean. Chloe watched fireworks with him. Chloe rented out an entire amusement park for him. I read each message and then ignored it. I spent my days packing and studying the file I had on the woman who had truly received Melody's heart. Once I got to Seattle, it would be a new beginning. A chance to start over and to be close to Melody again. On the final day of the cooling-off period, I went and picked up the official divorce decree. When I got home, I found Chloe sitting on the living room sofa. Her brow, which had been tightly furrowed, relaxed slightly when she saw me. "Where have you been?" I was surprised to see her. She'd been with Julian for days. I hadn't expected her to come back. "Why are you home today? You don't remember?" My casual question made her face darken. I looked at her, confused. "Remember what?" "Today is our third wedding anniversary." Seeing that I had genuinely forgotten, she looked frustrated, but perhaps thinking about everything that had happened recently. She swallowed her anger. "I made a reservation at a restaurant. Let's go out to eat." I was about to refuse, but then I thought of the freshly printed divorce decree in my bag. I nodded. I was leaving soon anyway. I decided this would be a good time to tell her. We arrived at the restaurant, and as we were walking to the entrance, my phone buzzed. I glanced down. It was a message from Julian. "It's your anniversary today, isn't it? I'm planning on telling Chloe today that I'm ready to be with her. After I do, how long do you think it'll take for her to kick you to the curb?" I paid his message no mind, but as I looked up from my phone, I saw Julian walking toward us. Chloe looked surprised. "Julian, what are you doing here?" Julian smiled, his eyes flicking pointedly at me. "I came to find you. Chloe, there's something important I need to tell you." In private, he clearly thought he had her in the palm of his hand, but to his surprise, she didn't answer right away. She actually glanced back at me, then said hesitantly, "Today's not a good time. Maybe some other time." Julian's eyes widened in disbelief. He clearly hadn't expected her to turn him down. His face crumpled, his eyes turning red with hurt. "Fine if you won't come with me now. Then we're done." He turned and ran, darting out into the middle of the street. Chloe's heart leapt into her throat. She opened her mouth to call out to him, but in her peripheral vision, she saw a car careening out of control, heading straight for Julian. Her pupils constricted. In that instant, nothing else mattered. She lunged forward, shoving Julian out of the way. The next second, there was a sickening thud, and a spray of red blossomed before my eyes. Across the street, Julian stood frozen, able to do nothing but scream. In the end, it was me who called 911 and got Chloe to the hospital. Her friends rushed to the hospital when they heard the news. They looked around and saw no one but me, waiting outside the operating room, my hands covered in her blood. "How is she? Where's Chloe?" "She's still in surgery." As for Julian, he was crying so hysterically that the doctors made him leave. I answered their questions patiently one by one. The surgery in progress light finally went off, and the door swung open. A doctor emerged pulling off his mask. "The patient should wake up tomorrow," thinking about the cause of her accident. They started talking amongst themselves, completely ignoring me. "Thank God she's okay. Did she forget she just had heart surgery? After she literally saved his life. Julian has to finally agree to be with her. Right." I listened to their chatter in silence, then turned to leave. But, before I could take a step, one of them called out impatiently, "Hey lapdog, where do you think you're going? Chloe's about to be out of surgery. Aren't you going to take care of her?" I turned back and saw them all staring at me, their faces etched with disapproval. "We're divorced. Why would I take care of her?" But my words sent a ripple of shock through the group. They all stared at each other, then back at me, their faces a mixture of confusion and disbelief. I ignored their stunned expressions, pulled the divorce decree from my bag, and handed it to the friend standing closest to me. I was going to give this to her today, but I never got the chance. "I can't wait until tomorrow. Please give it to her for me." Before any of them could react, I turned and walked away. As I walked away, one of them finally found her voice and called after me, "Ethan, where are you going?" "I'm getting out of Julian's way." Just like you all wanted." Owen wished them all the best for me. "I won't be coming to the wedding." After leaving the hospital, I went straight back to the house. CH1 the thought of finally meeting the real recipient, of hearing Melody's heartbeat again, filled me with an eager, joyful anticipation. My bags were already packed. I grabbed my suitcase, walked out of the house, and got in a cab. I went straight to the airport and never looked back. Her friends and Julian were gathered around her hospital bed teasing her. You really moved Julian. You know, saving his life like that. LL take the man he was talking about was Julian. He'll have to repay you by marrying you now. Won't he? So Chloe, you finally got your man. Julian blushed at their teasing, then looked at her with a face full of emotion. Chloe, I never knew you would do so much for me. Once you're better, let's be together. What do you say? As soon as he finished, the room erupted in cheers of say yes, say yes. But Chloe, the center of all this attention, remained silent. Her eyes scanned the room, searching for a face that wasn't there. Her silence gradually quieted the room. Seeing her expression darken, one of her friends asked uncertainly, Chloe, what's wrong? Where's Ethan? Why isn't he here? She managed to keep her anger in check, her voice tight as she asked the question. That Ethan, he had really been pushing his luck lately. First, he was rejecting her. Then he was attacking Julian. And he'd forgotten their anniversary. And now that she was away, he was nowhere to be found. Chloe didn't even care about her own injuries. She just waited for an answer. But a long, heavy silence fell over the room. She looked up and saw the stunned expressions on their faces. A terrible premonition bloomed in Chloe's chest. When no one answered, she started fumbling for her phone. But just then, Julian spoke. Of course he's not here. He was too ashamed to stay. The word divorce hit her like a physical blow. First came the shock, then a wave of uncontrollable rage. She slapped Julian's hand away as he reached for hers. What divorce? Who said I divorced him? This time, it was her friends and Julian who were left stunned. I had sounded so certain when I told them. They had all assumed Chloe had initiated it. But now, it was clear she knew nothing about it. Julian, stung by her rejection, suppressed his own anger. I'm not making it up. He saw you were hurt, and he wouldn't even wait for you to wake up. Jessica told him to stay and take care of you, and he just shoved a divorce decree in her hand and said you were divorced, and it wasn't his problem anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, Jessica and the others nodded in agreement. Jessica quickly produced the divorce decree I had given her as proof, but Chloe still refused to believe it. How could I not know about this? What divorce decree? It has to be a fake. But even as she said the words, a seed of doubt began to sprout in her heart. Her hands found her phone. She pulled up my contact and fired off an iMessage. Get to the hospital now. We can pretend this whole divorce decree thing never happened. She tried to calm herself, telling herself that I was just sulking again, just like before. But a moment later, a read exclamation point appeared next to the message. Not delivered. She tried calling, only to find that I had blocked her number. Without a second thought, she ripped the IV from her arm and tried to get out of bed. Her sudden movement caused a panic in the room. Chloe, what are you doing? Stop! But Chloe ignored their cries, swinging her bare feet to the floor. But the moment she put weight on her leg, an excruciating pain shot through her ribs and her injured leg, and she collapsed back onto the bed. Chloe struggled to get up again. But the doctor, who had just come in for his rounds, he gently pushed her back down. He had the nurse reinsert the IV, then scolded her gently. You nearly died in that accident. You just woke up, and you're already trying to run around and pulling out your IV. Do you have a death wish? Don't you know serious injuries take time to heal? And you all know she has a weak heart. Stop upsetting her. The doctor continued to lecture them on proper patient care before finally leaving, shaking his head. In the room, Chloe's breathing was ragged. Then just then, she was clearly agitated. She still couldn't believe I had actually blocked her. As for the divorce, she didn't believe a word of it. The way I adored her, how could I ever bring myself to leave her? The thought calmed her slightly. She held out her hand to Jessica. Jessica, understanding, placed the divorce decree in her hand. Julian, standing off to the side, couldn't believe he was being completely ignored. Just yesterday, she had risked her life for him. And now, when he had finally offered her everything she'd ever wanted, she seemed completely uninterested, and was instead obsessed with me. He gritted his teeth, his heart filled with a bitter jealousy. Chloe, what's so interesting about a stupid piece of paper? If he wants to leave, let him. I'll always be here for you. The old Chloe would have been ecstatic to hear those words from Julian. She probably would have dumped me on the spot and married him without a second thought. But now, she felt nothing. She just stared at the decree in her hand, a cold sneer playing on her lips. It looked real enough. But she had never signed any papers, never been to any courthouse. How could it possibly be real? She didn't respond to Julian. Instead, she muttered under her breath, almost to herself, "We'll see just how long he can stay away. Let's see if he ever comes back." She had spoken quietly, but everyone in the room heard her loud and clear. Her friends quickly tried to smooth things over. Exactly. Ethan adores Chloe. There's no way he'd actually leave her. I give him the weak stops. He'll come crawling back. Their cheerful chatter managed to dispel some of Chloe's anxiety. She tossed the decree onto the nightstand. She couldn't help but think that I was just jealous again, because she had saved Julian. This time he'd even gone so far as to get a fake divorce decree to scare her. She wasn't that easily fooled. She'd have to give me the cold shoulder for a while after this. He needed to learn that while a little pouting was fine, pulling a stunt like this was going too far. With that thought, she picked up her phone and made a call. "I need you to find out where Ethan got this divorce decree. Once she had proof, we'd see what excuses I could possibly come up with." Her friends tactfully avoided mentioning my name, all of them just waiting for me to come crawling back, so they could have a good laugh at my expense. But the days turned into a week, then 2, then a month, and I never showed up. As her expression grew darker with each passing day, her friends tried to distract her with other topics. Julian stayed by her side every day, his attentive care the envy of everyone who saw it. She had finally gotten what she'd wanted for years, yet her mind was consumed with thoughts of me. She didn't seem happy at all. Her initial certainty gave way to doubt. And then, as her discharge date approached a month later and I still hadn't appeared, a sliver of insecurity began to creep in. Had I really given up on her? But how was that possible? Just then, her phone, which had been silent for weeks, finally rang. Her hand moved faster than her brain. She snatched up the phone. "Ethan, you finally decided to call me." At the mention of my name, all eyes in the room turned to Chloe. But a moment later, her face fell. "Miss Sterling." It wasn't me on the line. It was her assistant, Miss Davis. No wonder she looked so disappointed. Miss Davis, unaware of the situation at the hospital, launched into her report. "The divorce decree Mr. Evans has is authentic. Regarding the agreement, the lawyers stated that they received your verbal consent for Mr. Evans to sign on your behalf." She had agreed. A fresh wave of anger washed over her. When the hell did I agree to that? But, before she could finish the sentence, the memory came flooding back. 2 months ago, I had called her, saying I needed to discuss something with her. She had been with Julian after his accident, and had told me she was too busy, and that I should just handle it myself. The realization made her face pale. When was the agreement signed? 2 months ago. Miss Davis's answer shattered her last shred of hope. Chloe's mind reeled. She didn't know whether to be angry that I had tricked her, or that I had been planning to leave her for so long. Thinking back, she realized that was right around the time I had started acting so strangely. But why? Julian had just returned, and she had only dragged me to the hospital to give blood for him that one time. Was that enough to make me want a divorce? So determined that I would plan it for 2 months. Chloe felt like she was missing something. Her breathing grew shallow, her anxiety mounting. Julian, seeing her distress and connecting it to the phone call, assumed she was just angry at being deceived. He tried to comfort her. "Chloe, he's the one who's ungrateful. Don't let him get to you. You have to be careful with your heart." His words of comfort had the opposite effect. They were a stark reminder. She suddenly remembered the strange question I had asked her that day at the hospital. "For years ago, you had a heart transplant. What was the donor's name?" "Why did you ask that?" "Just confirming something." The conversation from that day replayed in her mind. It was after that day that I stopped needing to listen to her heartbeat to sleep. It was after that day that I, who had always been so compliant, started refusing her every suggestion. Even the divorce papers were signed around that time. "Chloe, what's wrong?" Jessica asked cautiously, seeing Chloe's sudden silence. But Chloe couldn't answer. She just kept repeating to herself, "No, it can't be. He loves me too much. Couldn't be because of the heart." The thought made her even more frantic. She lashed out. "Get out. All of you. Get out." Seeing her state, Jessica and her friends quickly left the room. Soon only Chloe and Julian were left in the room. She turned to Julian, who was looking sulky, and hid her impatience. "You should go. I'm a little tired. And as for the other thing, don't bring it up again." I have no intention of divorcing Ethan. With that, she turned away from him, but Julian's eyes widened in disbelief. Chloe, what do you mean? You're not going to divorce him. Then what does that make us? I only see you as a friend. A friend. Julian let out a bitter mocking laugh. He stared at her back, his voice dripping with sarcasm. You say we're just friends. Then let me ask you. Does the great Chloe Sterling always treat her friends this well? Does she drag her anemic husband too? Give blood for a sick friend? Then spend a week doting on that friend while completely ignoring the husband who just gave blood? Does she abandon her husband on a remote hilltop to go to a friend's party? Does she force her publicly humiliated husband to stay at that party just because a friend wants to have fun? Does she let her parents give the family heirloom to a friend instead of her husband? Does she watch her husband nearly drown and forbid anyone from saving him, all to defend a friend? Does she throw her own life away to save a friend right in front of her husband? With each question, the color drained from Chloe's face. It was only then that she finally understood just how cruel she had been to me. What had she been thinking? She had simply assumed that I loved her so much that I would never leave, and so she had acted without any thought for my feelings. That's why even when she noticed I was acting strangely, she still thought she could placate me with a few kind words. But she had loved Julian for so long that he had become an obsession. Favoring him was a habit one she fell back on without even thinking. But it wasn't until I was truly gone that she finally realized it was me she couldn't bear to lose. If I've done anything to give you the wrong impression, I apologize. Chloe's heart ached with a growing sense of guilt toward me. If I had still been there by her side, she probably would have joyfully accepted Julian's proposal. Chloe's averted gaze sent a chill through Julian's heart. After a long silence, he let out a harsh laugh. Fine, fine. Chloe, I must have been blind to ever have feelings for a woman like you. He stormed out of the room, but paused at the door to look back at her, his voice filled with venom. You know what, Chloe? You're pathetic. You deserve to never be with the person you love. With that, he slammed the door shut. The sound, or perhaps his words, made Chloe flinch. Finally, she was alone in the room. She lay in bed, tossing and turning, her mind a turbulent sea of thoughts. After a long while, she picked up her phone and called Miss Davis again. I want you to investigate Ethan's past. Everything. From the day he was born. She didn't have to wait long. The next morning, before her friends arrived, Miss Davis delivered a thick file. As she turned the pages, her expression grew increasingly grim. The file detailed my life with my childhood sweetheart, Melody Rose. They were the perfect couple, together for 13 years, on the verge of getting married. But 4 years ago, a tragic car accident had shattered their lives. Melody Rose had died in that accident, shielding me from the impact. After her death, her parents honored her wishes and donated her heart. And it was at that exact time that Chloe, against all odds, had found a matching heart and survived. And it was that same year that I had appeared in her life. It all made sense now. But the donor heart she had received was not Melody Rose's. She remembered my question about her donor. I must have gotten incorrect information, leading me to believe she had Melody's heart. No wonder I had suddenly appeared in her life, pursuing her with such single-minded obsession. No wonder my favorite thing to do was lie on her chest and listen to her heartbeat. No wonder I had pulled away the moment I learned her owner's name was Martin. Chloe suddenly remembered the fight over the necklace. It was just a necklace. Was it really worth all this? My broken cry echoed in her memory. It was. The person I love most in this world gave that to me. And when she had offered to buy me a new one, I had been struck dumb, as she remembered the game. My unhesitating answer. I know I hadn't been lying to her. She had just misunderstood everything. Chloe put the file down, fighting to control her emotions. But her eyes welled with tears. Miss Sterling, are you all right? Miss Davis asked tentatively. Sensing her distress, she didn't answer, just waved her hand, dismissing her. Miss Davis left without another word, but just as she reached the door, Chloe's voice stopped her. Find out if the person who received Melody Rose's heart is in Seattle. Yes, Miss Sterling. The door clicked shut, leaving the room in silence. In the suffocating silence, her carefully constructed composure finally shattered. She covered her face with her hands and began to sob. She had always thought she was the one in control, the one who could walk away at any moment. She had thought she was keeping me around, out of pity for my pathetic devotion. She had even thought that if I truly couldn't live without her, she could keep me, even after a divorce. Now she saw how wrong she had been. Ethan, you were a brilliant actor. And you were so cruel. Everyone thought she was the one who was loved. And she had believed it too. All these years, she had taken my devotion for granted, letting herself drown in the illusion of my love, only for me to rip it all away the moment she started to feel something herself. A message alert chimed. She wiped her ears and looked at her phone. It was from Miss Davis. Miss Sterling. The recipient is indeed in Seattle. The message extinguished her last glimmer of hope. She let out a self-mocking laugh. After a long moment, she typed a reply. Book me the next flight to Seattle. And send me her file. Yes, Miss Sterling, Seattle. The Vance Group headquarters. After a month of relentless effort, I finally landed a job at the Vance Group after a series of carefully orchestrated chance encounters. I finally caught the attention of the CEO, Serafina Vance. Miss Vance, fancy meeting you hereafter yet. Another one of our coincidences. Serafina, though she clearly suspected my intentions, remained perfectly composed. She smiled and nodded. Indeed, it is. Although, this is our 15th coincidence this month. And today is the 15th of June. Mr. Evans, I don't know what your game is, but you clearly don't understand the concept of subtlety. My intentions laid bare. I felt no embarrassment. Instead, I brazenly sat down in the chair across from her. I understand it. I just choose to ignore it. As for what I'm after, you of course. The beautiful, brilliant and poised Miss Vance. After all, you're young, successful, beautiful and wealthy, and you're still so polite to your obviously scheming secretary. I imagine being your boyfriend would be a very happy existence. My gaze was bold, my tone flirtatious. Most people would have been offended by my forwardness. But she just laughed softly, taking it all in stride. Thank you for the compliments, and for the high praise. Her response caught me off guard, and my eyes drifted to her lips. Serafina had never been stared at so intently. She raised a fist to her mouth and cleared her throat softly. I reluctantly pulled my gaze away. They say people with thin lips are often cruel, but I've never believed that. According to my research, Serafina Vance had always been a prodigy. She was top of her class from elementary through high school, finished her undergraduate degrees in finance and computer science in just 2 years, and went straight into a PhD program. She began taking over the family business at 18, had full control by 19, and by 20, she had made the Vance Group the top corporation in Seattle. But perhaps as a cruel twist of fate, this brilliant woman was born with a severe congenital heart defect. At 22, a heart attack nearly killed her. She almost didn't survive. Fortunately, a matching heart was found just in time, and her condition finally stabilized. Whether because of her health or for other reasons, in all these years, there had never been a single rumor about her dating, let alone being in love. Knowing that Melody's heart had saved someone like this brought me a small measure of peace. Mr. Evans, Serafina's slightly raised voice pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up and saw the tips of her ears were pink. She was surprisingly flustered. The thought emboldened me, and I pressed my attack. I don't suppose you're in the market for a boyfriend, Miss Vance. Serafina came from a wealthy and powerful family. Since taking over the company in 19, she had been pursued by countless men of all types, but she had never encountered anyone as brazen as me. I was a strange contradiction of forwardness, and something she couldn't quite place. She wasn't offended. In fact, she found it interesting. But, a moment later, she shook her head, her rejection swift and decisive. I don't need one. I wasn't discouraged. I'll wait. All right. But, if you ever change your mind, will you consider me first? She didn't say yes or no. Instead, she asked why me. Her question caught me off guard. But, I recovered quickly. Does love need a reason? I said, my gaze drifting away. But if you must have one, then I can only say, because it's you. It had to be you. As I spoke the last words, a note of sadness crept into my voice. But I wasn't lying. A silence fell between us, broken only by the clinking of her spoon against her coffee cup. After a moment, she checked her watch and stood up. Our break is almost over. You should head back. Mr. Evans, as you wish, I replied with a playful salute, as if my earlier sadness had been a figment of her imagination. She didn't look back, just gave a small wave. This coffee's on me. I smiled and thanked her, my eyes following her as she walked away. If she had turned around then, she would have seen the longing in my eyes. I looked down and whispered, "I miss you so much, Melody." Just then, a shadow fell over my table. I looked up, and when I saw who it was, all the warmth drained from my face. "Chloe, what are you doing here?" Chloe, having tracked me down, looked exhausted from her journey. Her face was pale, her hair disheveled. She had seen me talking with Serafina from a distance, and whatever apology she had prepared died on her lips, replaced by a sharp bitterness. "Is she your new target? I never knew you were such a good actor, Ethan. Does she know you're only with her for her?" I ignored her venomous words, calmly finished my coffee and stood up to leave, walking right past her. I acted as if she wasn't even there, but as I passed her, she grabbed my arm, her grip like steel. I pried her fingers off one by one, then brushed off my sleeve where she had touched me. The look of disgust on my face clearly wounded her. "Without that heart?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Is my touch really so repulsive to you?" I had known when I left that she would eventually find out the truth. I had just assumed she would be happy to be free of me, free to be with her precious Julian. I never imagined she would follow me all the way here, but I didn't care about her feelings. I was too tired to argue. I turned to leave again, but she raised her voice, stopping me in my tracks. "Ethan!" Her shout turned heads throughout the cafe. Now the center of attention, I sighed and turned back to her. "I don't suppose you came all this way on business, Miss Sterling? If not, it's almost time for me to get back to the office." My cold words made her eyes well up with tears. She looked like an abandoned puppy, staring pitifully at its owner. When she spoke again, her voice was choked with emotion. "Ethan, you schemed your way into my life for a heart, and now you're throwing me away without a second thought. How can you just come and go as you please? How could you make a decision like divorce all by yourself? I never knew about those divorce papers. They're not valid." I shook my head, a mocking smile on my face. "But Miss Sterling, I did ask you. You should be happy. You accuse me of having ulterior motives. But what about you? Can you honestly say you had no selfish reasons for marrying me? That you actually loved me? Besides, during our entire marriage, did you ever once treat me like a real husband? Because based on the things you've said, the things you've done, the way you've carried on with another man right in front of me, Chloe, anyone else in this world has the right to judge me for my reasons, but not you." My voice grew colder with each word, and the color drained from her face. She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. She had no defense. Still, she wouldn't give up. "But you chased me for years. We were married for 3. In all those years, when you lay on my chest listening to my heartbeat thinking of someone else, did you really feel nothing for me at all?" I didn't have to think. The answer was immediate. "Nothing." Chloe asked herself back then. What was there about you for anyone other than Julian to love? Isn't me leaving exactly what you always wanted? We're divorced. Why aren't you with Julian? Why are you here chasing after me?" Her love for Julian was no secret. Neither was her complete disregard for me. That's why her friends felt so free to humiliate me time and time again. That's why in 3 years of marriage, the one time I went to her family home, I had to watch her parents give the family heirloom to another man. That's why Julian felt so confident in taunting me, in flaunting his victory. Thank God I was never in love with her. I don't want to be with Julian. I want you, Ethan. Melody Rose is dead. Even if someone else has her heart, that person isn't her. I know I was wrong before. I know that now. Please just give me another chance. I'll do anything. Just please. Don't leave me." I had never seen this side of Chloe before. She was fragile, broken, her voice filled with a desperate, pleading insecurity. The Chloe I knew was always in control, a powerful and decisive woman who always got her way. Even with me, while she wasn't as formidable, she was always cold and distant. With Julian, she could be gentle and caring. She had so many sides, but never this one. For a rare moment, I hesitated, but then I glanced at my watch, turned to leave and gave a dismissive wave over my shoulder. "My life is no longer your concern, Miss Sterling. You should go home." Chloe watched as I pushed open the door of the coffee shop and disappeared from her sight. She reached a hand to her chest, a helpless gesture. It felt hollow, as if something precious had been ripped out. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The CEO's office on the 23rd floor of the Vance Group. Serafina Vance had just finished it to our video conference. Exhausted, she pressed the call button on her desk. 2 minutes later, I walked in with a glass of warm milk. She reached for it out of habit, taking a sip without even looking down. But the taste surprised her. She looked down and saw the pure white of the milk. Mr. Evans. I asked for coffee. She was about to tell me to get her another cup. But I shook my head. You've already had coffee. Miss Vance, for the sake of your health, you shouldn't have any more right now. Thinking of her heart condition. Serafina paused. Then after a moment, a small laugh escaped her lips. Her previous secretaries had always just catered to her whims. After all, she was the boss. She never expected that I, after only a month, would already be trying to manage her. She waved a dismissive hand, not arguing the point, and simply set me out. But she kept the glass of milk. After I had gone, Serafina stared at the closed door, slowly stirring the milk. Ethan Evans, she murmured. Who are you really? On her desk lay a file her assistant had brought in half an hour ago. She opened it. The first page was the resume I had submitted when I was hired. A master's degree from a top university like Stanford should have made it easy to find a job. Yet my resume showed no prior work experience. In other words, this job at the Vance Group was my very first. Looking further back, my academic record at Stanford was impeccable. I had managed to excel, winning numerous awards alongside my girlfriend, all while maintaining a relationship. Girlfriend. Serafina stared at the name Melody Rose. She didn't recognize it. After a moment's thought, she picked up the intercom. I need you to run a background check on a woman named Melody Rose and her connection to Ethan Evans. Yes, Miss Vance. The assistant was efficient. Before long, a second file was placed on her desk. She opened it, her eyes immediately drawn to the small print beneath a photograph. Deceased for years prior. Serafina flipped back and forth between the two files, her mind a whirl of confusion. Could two people who were so deeply in love really see one of them fall for Chloe and relentlessly pursue her into marriage so soon after the other's death? And what did it mean for him to suddenly divorce her for years later and show up in my life? Of course, Serafini couldn't possibly imagine a love so all-consuming that even after death every last trace of that person left in the world would become the object of a desperate, unending search. After my 3-month probationary period, I was officially hired at the Vance Group. She seemed to want to keep me close. To figure out my true motives, she took me with her to every event, always watching, trying to find a crack in my facade. Finally, for months later at a gala, I ran into my ex-wife Chloe. I hadn't seen her in 6 months. She was back to her old self, the powerful woman who commanded any room she entered, though none of her usual friends were with her. I stayed close to Serafina, not even sparing Chloe a glance. As long as she left me alone, I was perfectly content. Serafina always traveled with a secretary and an assistant. She'd gone through countless assistants, but I had remained her secretary since the day I started. Most of the time, however, she didn't give me any actual work. The assistant handled her paperwork and ran interference at parties. My only job as her secretary seemed to be to eat, drink and look presentable, as if she were just taking me on a series of outings. I wasn't conceited enough to think this meant she valued me. I could tell she was watching me, wary of me, but I didn't care. It would be best if Serafina could fall in love with me. Not I paused. It didn't matter. I had all the time in the world. Waiting for her to fall for me was the ideal outcome. But, if that didn't happen, just staying by her side was enough. At the very least, I couldn't let her fall for anyone else. Just then, I sensed a shadow moving toward me from behind. I turned cautiously and found Chloe standing there. 6 months. And you don't seem to have made much progress, she said. I didn't want to engage, but fearing a repeat of our last encounter, I replied, my progress is none of your concern, Miss Sterling. The words were sharp, meant to sting. In truth, Chloe had rarely seen this side of me before. I had been completely subservient. Later, I was cold and distant, but I had never been this openly hostile. She gave a self-mocking laugh. Is she really that special? So special that you change who you are, stay by the side of someone you don't love, and pretend for years on end? Neither of us said her name, but we both knew who she was talking about. A heavy silence fell between us. Chloe instantly regretted her words. She was afraid I would walk away. But she was also afraid of my answer. No matter what I said, she knew she wouldn't be able to handle it. She wanted to replace Melody in my heart, not to lose to her Emery all over again. But the question had been asked. and it demanded an answer. I drained my glass in one swallow and looked up at her. She's worth it. Of course she is. Melody loved me more than anyone in this world. She was different from everyone else. Besides my parents, Melody was the only person who loved me for being me. Ethan Evans. In my heart, no one will ever compare to her. We had so many wonderful years together. We were so close. We were about to stop being childhood sweethearts and finally become husband and wife. At that, I finally broke down, the sobs racking my body. Chloe never imagined her bitter question would be the thing to make me completely unravel. The last time I'd been like this was the day my necklace was destroyed. She tentatively reached out to wipe a tear from my cheek. When I didn't pull away, she wrapped her arms around me. Maybe it's true that you're most vulnerable when you're broken. In that moment, I didn't push her away. I buried my face in her shoulder, my tears soaking her dress, and she just gently patted my back. When the tears finally subsided, I pulled away, without a word of goodbye. I rushed downstairs. She didn't try to stop me, just watched me go. Neither of us noticed the security camera behind us recording the entire exchange. Back in the ballroom, Serafina's assistant's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, then leaned in to whisper something to Serafina. Serafina's expression didn't change. She simply nodded to show she understood. She swirled the champagne flute in her hand, only realizing when she took a sip that it was just sparkling cider. Serafina never drank alcohol. No matter the occasion, she would always toast with juice or cider. But tonight, the cider suddenly seemed bland and unsatisfying. The assistant looked away for only a second, but when she looked back, Serafina was gone from her side. She was standing by the champagne hour, a fresh glass in her hand. The champagne served at these events was never very strong. But, because of her congenital heart condition, Sabrina had never had a single drop of alcohol in her life. Even the low-proof champagne was potent for her. She drank it too quickly, and the bubbles went down the wrong way, sending her into a fit of coughing. The assistant panicked. Why on earth had she decided to start drinking now? Seeing Serafina raise the glass for another sip, the assistant rushed to intervene, but she was too far away. But just then, a hand shot out and snatched the glass from her grasp before she could even react. I tilted the glass back and finished the rest of the champagne, my lips touching the same spot hers had been moments before. She stared at me, stunned for a moment. Then her expression soured. Weren't you just crying over your ex-wife? You couldn't wait to fall into her arms. What business do you have telling me what to do? Is it such a hardship to be by my side that you actually cried over it? I of course had no idea what was going through her head. I had just come back downstairs to see her, being so reckless with her health. She knew she couldn't drink. She had abstained for 27 years. Why start now? Couldn't possibly be a delayed rebellious phase. She was upset, but I was furious. When she reached for another glass, I stepped in front of her. Miss Vance, you're not a child. What right do you have to tell me what to do? It's my body, my choice. I'm your secretary, and as I've made perfectly clear, I'm also your suitor. Why wouldn't I have the right? Besides, haven't you been tacitly allowing it all this time? Even I could tell something was wrong with her. I swirled the champagne in the glass, trying to change the subject. And anyway, you've let me get away with it plenty of times before. What's one more? A faint lipstick print marked the rim of the glass. Serafina's eyes widened as she realized we had just drunk from the same glass, and I had deliberately drunk from the exact same spot. Did that count as an indirect kiss? At the thought, her eyes flickered down to my lips. Her stare made me uncomfortable. I looked away. You've had too much to drink. Miss Vance, let me help you to your room. The assistant watching from a distance was stunned. She looked down at the video clip on her phone, then back at us, suddenly hesitant. Should she still send the video to her boss? Seeing Serafina follow me out of the barroom, the assistant made a decision. She emailed the video, then quietly followed us. After all, whenever Serafina brought me to these events, her primary instruction to her assistant was always the same. Watch my every move. I got a room using her name and helped her to the bed. I wiped her face and hands with a cool cloth and even placed her slippers by the side of the bed. When she just continued to stare at me, I gently lifted her feet and slipped them into her slippers. Can you manage a shower on your own? I asked tentatively. But she just stared at me, silent, resigned. I went and drew a bath for her. Once the temperature was right, I gently guided her into the bathroom. I didn't linger, turning to head for the door. As soon as I opened it, I met the eyes of her assistant in the hall. Mr. Evans. Is she? I was perfectly composed. I stepped aside. Miss Vance has had too much to drink. I drew a bath for her. I was just coming to find you. Before I could finish my sentence, a hand grabbed my arm onto powerful. Force yanked me back into the room. The next second, the door slammed shut in the assistant's face. She had to admit when she first followed us. She had been worried about protecting Serafina's virtue, but now, she rubbed her nose, pretended she hadn't seen a thing, and beat a hasty retreat. Inside the suite, Serafina had me pinned against the door, our hot breaths mingling in the small space. Her eyes burned into mine as she asked, her voice low and searching. Ethan, who is it you really have in your heart? How much of what you say is real, and how much is just an act? Her question sent a jolt through me. Serafina saw the flicker of panic in my eyes and let out a cold laugh. I forced myself to remain calm and meet her gaze. My free hand grew bold, sliding around her waist. The only person in my heart is you. Of course. Is that so? She didn't believe me. Yet she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned in closer, her breath warm against my neck. I felt a shiver run down my spine as her eyes locked onto mine. Is that what you told Chloe too? The name Chloe caught me off guard. It took me a moment to process her question. But, instead of panicking, I just laughed. A wide, reckless grin spreading across my face. Are you jealous? Miss Vance. I'm glad. It means you're starting to care about me, but I can assure you, I have no feelings for her. I only want you. I put every ounce of sincerity I could muster into my eyes, trying to draw her in. If she didn't know the truth, she might have actually believed me. But now, all Serafina felt was a bitter mix of emotions. All this effort, all for someone who was already gone. I had gone to such great lengths, researching her every like and dislike, always being there for her, appearing at a moment's notice whenever she needed anything. Who could possibly refuse a partner like that? But the more I did for her, the more her heart ached with a bitter sadness. At that thought, she pushed me away. I know you don't love Chloe. She paused, her voice dropping. But you don't love me either. There's only one person you've ever loved. Her name was Melody Rose. Your childhood sweetheart of 20 years. The girl whose only wish was to marry you. The girl who died 4 years ago protecting you. And whose heart was then donated to me. You say you love me. But look at me. I look nothing like her. Other than this heart, there is nothing connecting us. Ethan, I don't know whether to call you hopelessly devoted or unbelievably cruel. I never expected to hear Melody's name from her lips. My web of lies had been torn apart, and I stood there exposed. My face went pale, a ringing in my ears. I opened my mouth, but it took a long moment for the words to come out. I'm sorry. I don't want your apology, Ethan. I just hope we never have to see each other again. As she spoke, tears streamed down her face, and she felt a strange flutter in her chest. For a fleeting moment, she couldn't tell if the feeling was her own, or if it was an echo of the love I so desperately chased. But in the end, she relented, pulling me into a gentle embrace and rubbing my back. She held me until I had calmed down. Then she turned to leave. At the door, she paused. Didn't turn around. She just sighed. She's gone. But she's not the only person in the world who could love you. It's time for you to move on. With that, she was gone. Serafina hadn't figured it all out on her own. She had taken my constant attention and concern as the actions of a devoted admirer, but she had never believed I was with her out of genuine affection. That's why she had investigated my past and Melody's. That's why she always had someone watching me, to make sure I didn't try anything. But I had done nothing but my job. I came to work. I went home. I looked after her. Nothing more. Just as she was starting to believe that my feelings might be real, Chloe had reappeared as my ex-wife. She naturally drew Serafina's attention. What she hadn't expected was for Chloe to seek her out and tell her the entire story. Serafina hadn't taken Chloe's word for it, where she had confronted me. She had been hoping desperately that I would deny it all, just as I had denied having any feelings for Chloe. But I hadn't. And then there was the surveillance footage from the gala. Chloe's voice crystal clear. Is she really that special? So special that you change who you are. Stay by the side of someone you don't love and pretend for years on end. She had been talking about herself. But she could have just as easily been talking about me and Serafina. The presidential suite was pitch black. Serafina had turned off the lights when she left. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening as her footsteps faded down the hall. Was what I did really so wrong? I slowly lay back on the bed. I thought about going after her, but what would be the point? Both Chloe and Serafina had said the same thing. Melody Rose is dead. Even if I caught her, it would be Serafina I was holding, not my Melody. My thoughts were a tangled mess. I lay there for a long, long time. At some point, I drifted off to sleep and had a long, vivid dream. In my dream, I was back 5 years ago. I was 22, and Melody was 20. On my birthday, I got down on one knee and proposed. I saw the light dancing in her eyes. Melody, every single birthday wish I've made since I was 5 years old has been to marry you. I'm 22 today. We can finally get married. Will you marry me? We were surrounded by a heart of flickering candles. In my hand, I held a diamond ring, bought with the prize money I'd won from academic competitions in college. Beside us was a bouquet of the deepest red roses, with a small card I had written myself tucked inside. Melody, I love you. Marry me. Tears of joy streamed down Melody's face as she held out her hand and nodded enthusiastically. Yes, soon after, our parents started planning the wedding. Melody didn't want to wait another year, so our parents carefully chose the perfect date for the end of the year. That way, it wouldn't be too rushed, but we wouldn't have to wait long either. We had the blessings of our parents and all our friends. We were supposed to be happy, but as the wedding approached, we had one last errand to run, to pick up gifts for our wedding party. We got in the car together to go shopping, and that's when the accident happened. We were stopped at a red light when a truck from the opposite direction, the driver drowsy and swerving into our line, came barreling straight for us. We tried to swerve, but the truck was moving too fast. In the split second before impact, Melody grabbed the wheel and turned the car, positioning her side to take the full force of the crash. Even then, she threw her body over mine, shielding me with her own. Melody died. The impact was so violent that even with her shielding me, I lost consciousness. But somehow Melody remained conscious. She calmly called for an ambulance and stayed with me all the way to the hospital. When the paramedics asked if she was hurt, she just shook her head. It wasn't until they told her it was gonna be okay that she finally collapsed. She never woke up again. I never even got to say goodbye. Her heart was donated after she died. When I finally woke up, all that was left of her was a small square box of ashes. And now in my dream, I saw her again. She was smiling, just like she always had, calling my name softly. Ethan, Ethan, Melody, I can't believe I'm seeing you again. My eyes filled with tears. I reached for her, my arms barely daring to wrap around her waist. She reached out too, but didn't touch me, just mind patting my back from a distance. Her eyes were filled with a deep, aching sadness. She wanted to wipe away my tears, but she couldn't. Ethan, don't cry. Please don't cry. Whatever we couldn't finish in this life, we'll finish it in the next. Okay, I want you to be happy. I want you to be yourself. Don't be trapped in the past anymore. Promise me. Okay, her gentle voice whispered in my ear, but I stubbornly shook my head. But I want to be with you. I miss you so much. But they aren't me, are they? She continued to coax me gently, patiently, until I finally nodded. Then she leaned in and kissed the tears from my cheek. Ethan, my only wish is for you to be happy. As her lips touched my skin, her form began to fade. I cried out, reaching for her. But my hands closed on empty air, my vision blurred with tears. I tried to wipe them away to see her for just one more second. I saw her lips move, forming to words. Be happy. I woke with a start, the bright morning sun streaming through a gap in the curtains. The pillow was damp with the dark stains of my tears. The details of the dream were already fading. But 2 phrases remained, seared into my memory. But they aren't me. Are they? Ethan, you have to be happy. I wiped the last of the tears from my eyes and threw open the curtains, letting the sunlight flood the room. That's right. No one is Melody. I have to live a good life for both of us. I pushed open the door to the suite, the sound startling the person who had been waiting outside. Her eyes flew open, and a look of relieved surprise crossed her face when she saw me. Ethan. It was Chloe. She hadn't slept at all, worried that her confrontation had pushed me over the edge. She didn't want me to be trapped in the past, but she was afraid of what I might do. So she had waited outside my door all night, ready to break it down if she had to. But here I was perfectly fine. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. Was it you who told her about Melody? Chloe's breath caught in her throat. but she had clearly been expecting the question. She quickly composed herself. She nodded, not trying to hide it. Ethan, I don't know if I did the right thing, but I don't think Melody would have wanted to see you living like this. If you had chosen someone you truly loved, I would have accepted it. I would have wished you well. But it should have been someone you actually loved. Even if it wasn't you. Yes, even if it wasn't me. She nodded. And maybe I should thank you. I was so happy to have seen Melody again. Even if it was just in a dream. And I had no regrets about how things had ended with Serafina. After all, Melody herself had told me they weren't her. From the moment her heart became a part of someone else, Serafina became a continuation of her life. But she was not. And never could be Melody. For helping me finally understand that. I really did have Chloe to thank. But that was all I owed her. In the years we were together, I had done nothing to be ashamed of. I owed her nothing more. I had approached her with an agenda, but I had never mistreated her. But the respect she had denied me, the cruelty she had shown me, that could not be so easily erased. A simple apology couldn't just wipe all of that away. Chloe, from now on, let's just pretend we never met. My steps felt lighter as I walked to the elevator. When the doors opened, I found myself face to face with Serafina. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the lobby. Thank you for the room last night, Miss Vance. If you could just add it to your bill when you check out, I'll be sure to pay you back. Also, will be submitting my resignation to HR today. Serafina stared straight ahead at the elevator doors, but I could see her watching me from the corner of her eye. She was silent for a moment, then said, I'm sorry, I was too harsh last night. You don't need to pay me back. The Vance Group isn't so cheap that we make our employees pay for their own rooms. As she spoke, the elevator doors opened onto the lobby. I stepped out first and turned to face them. Miss Vance, it's been a pleasure working with you. I nodded to her assistant. Thank you for all your help. I wish you both the best. I gave a small wave and walked away. I hailed a cab outside the hotel and was quickly swallowed by the city traffic. By the time Chloe rushed down to the lobby, all she saw was my taxi pulling away from the curb and disappearing into the flow of traffic. She ran out onto the street. But my cab was already gone. Don't bother, Serafina said, coming up behind her. He's not coming back. It was strange. She was the one who had sent me away. But now, she felt an aching emptiness in her chest. But she knew that even if I had stayed, I would have never truly been hers. As for me, I went to the airport. For the first time in a long time, I was going home. After Melody's accident, I had avoided going home. I was afraid of the memories that would be waiting for me there. Now I was finally ready to face them. When I showed up on their doorstep, my parents' eyes filled with tears. But there was no blame in their voices. Only relief. You're home. Hearing the commotion, the door to the house next door opened. When Melody's parents saw me standing there, their faces were a mixture of shock and joy. Ethan, you're back. It's so hot out here. Come inside. Come in. Looking at their kind, familiar faces, and how they still treated me with such warmth. My heart ached with guilt and sorrow. In the end, all I could manage to say was, I'm so sorry. It was all my fault. Melody's mother gently stroked my hair. Silly boy, how could we ever blame you? Melody gave her life to save you. You have to live a good life for her. You have to keep moving forward. Their kindness only made me want to cry more. I fought to hold back the tears. It would be okay. Everything would be okay. I would live a good life for both of us.